Transformers Prime was one of the best Transformers TV shows that we've gotten in a non-exclusive platform in the last decade. This show was nominated for a Daytime Emmy, and Daytime Emmy and Transformers Television Show are two words that generally don't mix together because, let's face it, most of the shows are shit. As much as it's an absolutely golden age show of Transformers, I feel like a couple of the characters weren't really given a chance to shine as much as they should have been. And of course, big fucking shock, Ultra Magnus was one of them. Premiering late into Season 3, right before the return of Optimus Prime, one of the most glorious, extremely packed episodes of all time. This is the most absolute dead ringer Generation 1 interpretation of Ultra Magnus that we've ever gotten. Being the loyal, faithful Autobot commander who's definitely competent but not quite Optimus Prime. This version of the character was an absolute Giga Chad, who, of course, was killed off in the stupidest way possible in Predacons Rising. Yes, it would take one hit from Predaking into a wall to kill Ultra Magnus, a character who has been through all of the following shit. Beast Hunter's Ultra Magnus is a direct retool of 2012 RID Optimus Prime, a mold that I think is absolutely fantastic, but the bat completely sucks! This truck mode is amazingly clean from just about all sides. There's barely any seam lines anywhere to be seen. If you look at this thing from the dead front, you'd barely recognize the Transformers, but when you turn the thing at even a slight angle, you start to see the shoulders just popping out. Yay! The sculpted detail on the front grille of the truck is amazing, but the bland gray paint scheme of undesigned plastic is really completely bland in my opinion. The light blue Autobot logo also doesn't really work because if even a slight amount of light goes onto it and it shines, you can't even see the thing. I feel Ultra Magnus is a character who'd be having a gigantic Elite Guard symbol proudly displayed across the grille of his truck. Or at least somewhere. The windows aren't translucent like the RID 2012 Optimus Prime, but who gives a crap. There are some small areas on the side of the truck that are also painted in a really nice shade of silver, including the side bits right here that I don't really know the name of, more side bits I don't know the name of. Have you gotten the indication I'm not a truck-savvy person? If you're looking for somebody who knows shit about cars, go to the Lazy Eyebrow Reviewer. I don't know anything. The trailer hitch on the back is surprisingly clean and doesn't have any ugly, hollow gaps in it like the SS-38 version. As much as that mold has grown on me, I still don't like the back of the truck very much. Unfortunately, to compensate for these flaws, you can see the shin bits and the shoulder bits hanging off the ass end, and that kind of makes the back of the truck look pretty egregiously heavily sparkled with kibble. The side rims on the wheels don't have any paint on them despite the nice sculpted detail, and that's a shame. A big criticism I have of all the Transformers figures is that they have a lot of sculpted detail, but there's nothing painted. But any blandness of the paint scheme is more than made up for the transformation, because the transformation on this thing is pure sex.
What I would rather do is rockin' in the USA. Nowhere else I'd rather stay. Rockin' and a rollin', rockin' and a rollin', rockin' in the USA.
This thing has one of the best transformation design elements in my opinion of all time. The way the truck turns itself inside out and upside down to bring the head up to the chest is fucking genius. The shoulder slats can be a bit of a faff, and they do hang about 8 feet above his head, which, that's Ultra Magnus for you in a nutshell. This causes the mushroom peg at the elbow to break off quite a few times, but fortunately it's something that you can easily reattach. The back of the figure doesn't have limp dick syndrome like the RID 2012 Prime, so that's always an upside for sure. And it actually really resembles the silhouette on the show. I didn't realize how much it was an absolute dead ringer screen accurate interpretation of the character, but even in the back of the model, this is exactly what it looks like. The silver and red highlights painted on the shoulders are absolutely gorgeous, but there's too much bland, undesigned gray anything below that. The elbows, torso, shins, thighs, and feet all had this undesigned gray plastic that just seems kind of bland. RID 2012 Prime made up for it by having 2 yellow little bits kind of painted in there, but that meant it was supposed to be a faux truck grille, and I appreciate the fact this one didn't go in that direction. The head sculpt on this thing is about as Ultra Magnus as you're possibly going to get. The no fun allowed military commander. with extreme patriotism, who's probably not abused at the fact that he gets killed in every stupid way possible in every Hasbro show that ever gets made of him. I feel ya, Magnus, I feel ya. The scope to detail at the torso is great. It really does look 100% screen accurate, but it's so unpainted it's just bland. I wish he could have added some energon blue in certain areas just to make things less monochromatic. There is one small area of the silhouette that's kind of ugly, and that's the inside of the leg. The way the foot has to fold in during transformation leaves a big hollow bit, but they left sculpted detail on the inside of it. It feels like they're kind of flipping us off, doesn't it? This was back at a time where the figures were nowhere near as hollow as they are today. Let's face it, Earthrise is getting closer and closer to Cyberverse Wave 1 quality. That's not a good thing, by the way. But despite all of the flaws in this figure, this silhouette is sexy as hell. This is the most excruciating screen accuracy you could possibly get out of a mainline average retail market figure. So how's the articulation? The head rotates, the shoulders rotate and move out, bicep bend and rotation, universal hips, knee bend, and foot tilt. All in all, the articulation might be basic on a thing, but the plastic balance is surprisingly good despite how much of the density goes right into the top. This makes posing him a cinch for the most part, but in certain poses you're going to struggle a bit more than others. This is why I feel like the shoulder stack should move independent of the arms and be on a separate hinge. If you move the shoulders even slightly in too much, he bonks himself on the head and sends himself to horny jail. Minus that, everything's relatively uninhibited. There's a little bit of a struggle with the bicep rotation because the shoulder stacks had to sit flush against it or they hang off and look kind of ugly, but that's not really that big of a deal. The ball joints in the feet are a little bit loose on my copy, but not loose enough to really address any concerns. Believe me, they're a lot worse in the RID 2012 version of the thing. And now that I'm putting RID 2012 Prime next to Beast Hunter's Magnus, it amazes me how much slightly retooling something and painting it a different color can give it an entirely different personality. You cannot tell me that these two figures look anywhere close to identical to each other, aside from the arms and elbows and whatnot, but that's just the basic design element that kind of goes for both of them. I found this thing online for about $40, and I had to say that this thing is definitely worth it. This thing is a classic example of how to do retooling the right way. And despite a couple flaws, Beast Hunter's Magnus is one of the best figures that I own in my collection. Or at least I think it's going to be. Nah, this is going to be the best figure in my collection. After all, it's not like Kingdom's going to spontaneously drop that Ultra Magnus is getting released in his Earth form or anything, right? Take my freaking money!